Okay, I want to know from each of you, what is the moment, if cross-examination is going to start, what is the moment that you're going to go after or try to capture to really win your defense?
I want to bring the jury back in time. I want to use the electronic footprint, text messages. Remember, in the opening statement, the defense said, we have text messages that tell a very different story. That's going to bring us back to the mindset at the time all of this was happening. Taking these specific incidents, looking at the messages, comparing the testimony and saying, but did you say no? And so if those text messages were to support that, we have to reframe the jury from the defense perspective to what was the point of view of both at the time. Was it consent or coercion? And I would use electronic footprint to do that.
That'll help you with the sex trafficking, which requires that force or coercion. The racketeering might be a bit different, but let's talk about that. What would you go after?
Well, I would try to get her a little bit away from the coercion, which is part of the racketeering, like you're saying, you know, that he coerced women to have sex with him, and bring up gently. She's still a victim, so you have to be gentle during the cross-examination. But I would bring up, well, this was a 10-year on and off relationship, right? And I would play on that it was a relationship, and she left a couple of times, and she dated a couple of other men. And although there's testimony, or going to be more testimony, that made Sean Combs angry, but she still had this free will to sort of leave and date other people and get out of the relationship. And I think that brings the point home that these terrible acts occurred inside a relationship, and that's what I would want the jury to hear from a defense side.
Jeremy?
I'd kid glove it, but be firm. And I would make it clear that pregnant Cassie is not 19-year-old Cassie who had dollar signs in her eyes. She had a 10-album deal in her eyes. She had a life of fame and fortune in her eyes, and she had it all in her hands. And she was a willful participant. She was engaging in these freak-offs. She helped arrange for them at times. No one forced a drug down her throat. She reached out and said, what do I take? There are own words that she used that can be used against her. And you have to be gentle about it. And it wouldn't be necessarily me as the guy being domineering in front of her as the bad guy. I'd have a woman cross-examine her and make it clear, Cassie today, who you empathize with, is not the Cassie of the past many, many years.
I think that would be effective.
Yeah, and just say, look, you can look back at a relationship in retrospect and think, man, this was awful and terrible. And we can all agree it was a horrible relationship. But at the time, was there consent with respect to the sexual conduct? And that's really where the defense is going to go, and they're going to use some of what came out on direct in order to further that narrative.
You know, interesting, too, they're going to have to address the racketeering, the idea of the enterprise, and they do have testimony that's been corroborated by another witness that there were people who traveled across state lines for the purpose of commercial sex or prostitution. They got to reconcile all those things, in addition to Cassie and another victim. But then there is the moment about Cassie's husband. The defense is saying, what? We might call him, don't want him in the courtroom. The judge said, I'm going to limit when he can't be here to the area of time or point in time that he might be questioned about. Otherwise, as a victim of crimes, she has rights to be there.
Yeah.
Would you try to get him out?
Well, listen, as far as he's concerned, because she's a victim, she has rights to have support in the courtroom. At this point, he's leaving the courtroom when it gets to 2018, and that's because there's an allegation, which presumably the defense wants to impeach her with respect to an alleged rape by Diddy and maybe what he knew at the time, because they had just begun a relationship. So I think that getting him out of the courtroom is necessary. If you think that you're going to call a witness, they can't listen to the testimony and then have the ability to tailor their testimony to whatever comes out in the courtroom. So that's something 101 that you would do to make sure that, that the testimony is not tainted before you even get him on the stand.
There's also possibly a monetary piece too. Was he part of seeking money and payment in the civil suit? And what are these potential messages to Diddy, to Sean Combs, and sort of in furtherance of that? And well, maybe again, back to money in your eyes, it's not just money in her eyes. There's a co-conspirator that corroborates that money and that drive, and that's what this is about.
Right. Money grab is the words they used in the defense.
Yep.
And that's going to be one of their tactics. But there's more than one victim. It's not just Cassie. It's also somebody else who has a pseudonym who will testify as well.
Right, and I think we've had a little bit of a preview of that also in the opening statement, because the defense is saying he was in a relationship with another woman and it wasn't a healthy relationship, it was dysfunctional, it was toxic, but it was still a relationship. And again, that's the same theme the defense wants, is this is domestic violence, this is not racketeering, this is domestic violence, this is not sex trafficking. And they're going to try to build those points throughout the trial.
To back you up and say one thing here, you know.
Oh, you're backing me up? That's so nice of you.
That's how we roll. We're friends. We're like that. Luigi, I think we agree on this. Like Luigi doesn't belong in federal court. Luigi belongs in state court.
Luigi Mangione,
right. This is the big
accused of having murdered a United Health CEO.
Yes, and that's inappropriate in the state court of New York.
Right.
And you know what? And I think we
Big
agree.
overreaching by
This
defense
also
to step in.
very well belong in a state court, wherever that may be.
Yes.
Well,
I
we'll
agree
see.
with that.
Mangione will be in court in about 3 weeks' time. But now Cassie will be back on the stand tomorrow.